Welcome back. You're watching Daybreak on Citizen TV, and thank you for staying with us. In studio with me is Venant Ndegila. He is the manager, disaster response with the Kenya Red Cross in the country, part of the organizations that are rolling out relief measures in targeting those who have been affected by drought and the severity that continues to deepen, the increasingly intensity and the consequences this has had on communities across the 29 counties listed by the government. Good morning, Vincent, and thanks for coming. Much appreciated. And I want us to discuss the consequences of the drought situation across the 29 counties and what you are doing as an organization. But first of all, give us an assessment, an upbeat assessment of the severity and the extent of the drought situation in the 29 counties.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, it's very clear that drought is here with us, and yes, 29 counties are very much affected, very significantly affected for that matter. And yeah, over 4.3 million people, Kenyans for that matter, are very much affected and in need of continuous support. This is in form of food, very significantly around water, and other related needs, especially nutrition related. But also, we have seen a very big negative impact around livelihoods, especially around the ASOL counties, where most of the Kenyans do livestock farming or pastoralists for livelihoods. A total of at least 2.5 million livestock have been lost. And this is huge, and the situation again is really deteriorating because we have not seen any significant rains since that time, and the indications as at now is that this season, the October, November, December rain season, is largely going to underperform in most of these counties. All right. Most of the arid and semi-arid counties, even if they get the average rains, really they'll not elevate much because already we have had at least 5 failed seasons so far. So the situation is dire, and more and more Kenyans continuously come into this bracket of needing support throughout, basically around water and food. So
the numbers are increasing, and the latest the figures given, 4.2 million people food insecure. You have talked about 2.5 million livestock that have been lost across the 29 counties. Before we come to the human toll, because this seems to be now expanding its horizons, and tell us more about then how you intend to roll out the food pellets for this livestock, because it's more or less an economic activity, and may I say the macroeconomic activity of major communities across the 29 counties. How are you planning to alleviate then the toll it's having on the livestock in the distribution of pellets?
We did some of covering part of the farmers, especially north and northeastern counties. And this again is, we are now on emergency basis and very much on relief, at least trying to maintain the livestock which are there. But we are seeing we still need to do more. We still need to do more around supporting the few livestock which are remaining. But also, most importantly, we need to also bring or couple with the other measures. For example, we did some livestock offtake operation where we are targeting 26,000 animals to support at least 300,000 people. These are some of the measures which are meant to at least reduce the losses, because it's very clear the rains are not going to come in a significant manner to be able to save the situation. So we need to look at ways of saving the valuable assets, including the livestock. For example, what I'm saying, working with the farmers to try and purchase the farmers which, the livestock which are emaciated, they are likely to be lost, and then we slaughter and give to the needy families. So yes, the pellets is one of them, but they need to be coupled with other measures.
Okay. When you mention the offtake program, many don't understand that offtake program. Yesterday, I sat down with Kajiado County Governor Joseph Olelenku, who explained to me in details that in the entire Kajiado County, they have rolled out 100 million Kenya shillings for an offtake program targeting 5,000 livestock. That's just a drop in the ocean. You have talked about 26,000 livestock out of 2.5 million livestock affected across 29 counties. And then tell us more about what this offtake program entails. And this seems to be very little, and it's far beyond the fast-pacing drought. Then how do you increase the number of the offtake program? And is that apparently having a positive impact on communities?
Yes, the livestock offtake has the spirit of at least on two sides. It is both a livelihood support intervention. At the same time, it is a humanitarian intervention. First, it's meant to at least save some of the assets by at least looking at the animals which are almost, or rather, are likely to be lost because of lack of water and pasture. And then they are purchased at a certain price, and then they are slaughtered. They are slaughtered in situ. And then from there, the meat is divided or distributed among the needy families. So you can see from there, we are trying to save them from getting lost, but the meat, again, is used for food security to assist those who need food at that time. So the humanitarian side bit comes and does the assessment of the most needy, the ones who have food challenges, and then they get this meat. So it is an intervention which is capital intensive because from the word go, a lot of funds are required because the farmers whose animals are being taken, they need the money immediately, either again to support them, alleviate the drought, the suffering around drought,
okay,
but also to save the money so that they can be able to restock later on, because the initial intention is livelihood support.
Okay, well, when you talk about money, because this is very critical, may I just interject there? Finance is very key, and you have talked about the saving, which is very important, especially in the tough times that we are in. But do you also roll out an awareness program targeting the communities that are dependent on livestock, in the sense that you make them realize the importance of the commercial element of their livestock? And for example, say 300,000 livestock, someone owns more than 300,000 livestock, and if, say, you make him understand about the commercial benefit of it, then he can be able to save even before the dry days that are normally forthcoming. And is that well received by the communities? How well have you rolled out that awareness campaign?
Yeah, thank you. First of all, as Kenya Red Cross, I want to say we started responding to the drought effects, supporting the communities which are affected as early as July, August last year. So over time, we have realized, yes, there's the emergency need, the relief interventions, but at the same time, we identified we need to link it very closely with the recovery. At the same time, resilience, which is very much long-term. So with this, therefore, as we are targeting the farmers and in the counties which are very much affected for the emergency intervention, while doing that livestock offtake, we are also employing some other approaches, especially linking the farmers with the necessary information, very valuable information, and building their awareness around working with the climate information. For example, we are really trying to build awareness around keeping manageable stocks, number of livestock in some of the targeted counties, okay, where we are informing the farmers that, yes, we are being informed this season is not going to perform very well. You have 300. Why don't you offload at least 150 and remain with 150 so that you can be able to manage? So, yes, we are building awareness around the emergency approach within the livestock offtake, but also we are looking at the mid to long-term approach. And we are working with the farmers very closely, and it's very encouraging. Some of the farmers like Garissa, Wajir, going up Marsabit and Turkana, they are embracing this way of thinking in terms of having manageable numbers.
Okay. The underperformance of the long rains and the October, November, December, the OND, as per the projections given by the Met Department, the National Drought Management Authority, the Kenya Red Cross Society, then here points to, or is a precursor to, further severity and the deepening of the crisis already at hand. From 23 counties, we are now at 29. That's about of 47, nearly more than double of the counties across the 47 devolved units. Then does this not stretch you in terms of capacity, one, and then two, personnel? And then how are you engaging with the national government as an organization, as an agency, and looking into this matter, which seems to be now exponentially growing in terms of its scope?
Kenya Red Cross, we are positioned again in the country to work with all the partners to support all those who have been affected by the various disasters in the country. So, and we come in mostly on emergency basis, where we respond very quickly, but at the same time, continuously we look at the risk reduction bit, where again we look at the mid to long-term interventions. For now, yes, the situation has been deteriorating. You can see the reports from the National Drought Management Authority have been increasing. We started with 500, now we are at 4.35. Okay. Of course, it's stretching. It is overstretching the resources we have had. And we can say, for example, food distribution, the logistics have become very, very exorbitant because, of course, the change in fuel prices, we are forced to reach the population who have migrated to very interior areas, increasing the distances. So it is becoming more and more expensive every time, overstretching, of course, of the few resources we have. However, we have been working with our partners, working with other well-wishers. So continuously, we have been trying to reach out. Of course, the government, both levels of government, the national government and the specific county governments, we are working with them. So in terms of, again, you are asking about the national government. Yes. It is very much in partnership, very supportive, because we are able to look at the situation together. And you look at this kind of disaster, it's very slow onset. It has very many risks around getting it wrong in terms of interventions. And what we have identified is about centrality of coordination, okay, or rather very efficient coordination, which as an organization, Kenya Red Cross, we have managed to sit both at the national and the county levels to be able to be at the center of coordination, because you have the simple history, we have what is coming, and we have the predicted information. So we are coordinating very closely with the national government and try to synergize and also harness the few resources we have. And then, again, working on the priority basis. For example, as of now, we are looking at a population of 1.4 million, which is very, very much in need, as more towards emergency, which continue very much as at now. It needs support in the three very important needs, that is water, food, and health services. Okay.
Now, when you mention 1.4 million people, and you have talked about how this is likely going to stretch your, or test your elasticity, because you're also rolling out food pellets for the livestock, and you're also reaching out to the people who have been affected across the counties. And I'll be coming to how climate change is leading to these, the effects of the pandemic and also the locust invasion that we have had. But given that you have mentioned the very critical component of how you are cooperating with the government in terms of reaching out to these people who are affected, we just aired a piece on our program this morning, and this was on Nyandarua County by our reporter Brenda Wanga. they are producing food in surplus, calling upon the government to even come and fetch some to reach out to those who have been affected or are in dire need of food. How do you then intend to tap within the counties that are food rich in terms of their basket and roll out to the people? And does that not further increase your capacity in the distribution of the relief food from the national government and you as an agency?
Yes, this is some of the approaches which we expect to do. But at the same time, we know these counties which are food producing, they are not islands. They are not very much separated to the other counties. So some of the local and existing food movement activities, we will not want to institutionalize interruption of those, because we still have food which is moving within those counties and the neighboring counties. So, and again, you look at in terms of the amounts, the numbers, yes, it is a contribution, but we are looking at now having more and more resources from a wider contribution. If we have Nyandarua is maybe neighboring another county which is very much in need. We'll have, we'll at least work with the existing arrangements to have the food move within the existing market arrangements, existing farmer to market activities, because they are there and they are working well. Once, for example, from a strategic point, you start going and approaching it as a relief, you can see how you destabilize the markets. And again, the prices definitely will go very high. You go in and start buying food as a relief. For relief, definitely it will go very high. And we are employing other approaches like cash voucher assistance.
The cash transfer program.
Cash transfer.
How is that alleviating the impacts then?
It is very much working, because we can see a bigger proportion of the affected counties' markets are fairly stable. And markets are fairly stable because some of the essential commodities are still available. The prices are a little bit moving up, but at least they are available. So this is another way which we are seeing is cheaper, more efficient, and we are seeing it's better if we work that way, because you will still maintain the existing livelihood and also the existing transfer of food from the farmers and the needy areas, instead of buying it and then now distributing it as relief. Again, because the whole approach is we still want to maintain resilience at the livelihood, at the household level. We don't want to say we are maybe incapacitating more those who are affected. We want to strengthen them. We also want to strengthen the existing food production population. Okay. Yeah.
And does that include, making communities aware about drought preparedness and promoting alternative climate resilience livelihood plans? Because we have talked about the predictions and the OND, the October, November, December rainfalls that are likely to underperform. Then beyond December into January 2023, how do you then come up with programs and plans as an agency and cooperating with the government? Because the adverse effect seems to be outpacing. You are rolling out of aid activities and reaching out to these communities. So what happens into the new year? Because already you have talked about the projections of the underperforming rainfall in the October, November, December period.
Yeah, I want to add there, besides the underperforming, we have the erratic seasons, erratic rainy seasons because of climate change and other factors, which have proved to also very disruptive around food production in Kenya. We, again, beside the emergency bit, very continuously we are looking at how we can be able to enable the farmers transit from emergency to recovery. And recovery, this is early recovery. But beyond that, also we are looking at the long-term bit in terms of strengthening their resilience. And we have seen over time that it's not easy to change culture, not easy to change ways of life of a segment of the population. So we are trying to work with science, again working with the farmers around their ways of life to try and see how they can be able to fit with the changing situation around the underperforming rains and the erratic seasons. And this again, the smart agriculture is one of them, and also again, as I said, around working with the pastoralists. So the main aim here is to link those parts of the population with information, with climate-related information. We have established a whole department around climate, and which does continuous analysis, and then from there we are able to advise the farmers and ensuring the farmers get the information in a way which they can be able to understand and relate with. This again, we say it's very central, because once a farmer has the necessary information, he knows how to use the information, then he's very capable of trying to survive and also improve on their resilience.
And I'll query you on the reception, because it isn't an easy task to convince certain portion of the population to departure or the take-off program from what they believed in for centuries. And owing to the climatic conditions in the world at the moment, how this is having dire and is prompting a change in the lifestyle. But then again, another special focus. And how does this appeal to you in the increasing cases of gender-based violence because of the situation in the country, and how the drought is putting at greater risk young girls and women across households in the country? Isn't this a further multiplication of your aid already? And does it come to your attention, and how do you normally address such issues across the counties affected?
Yeah, it's the gender-based violence. Yes, it has become very glaring. We have had very significant numbers. And it is indicative, yes, it's very much related to the stresses and the pressure around drought. We have established this also with the larger approaches of mental health and psychosocial support. And we have identified that it is very, very important to be able to identify and detect these effects, at least in the early stages, because in our reports, it is indicating that they are very much related, and they come concurrently. Once they are pressures of life, then you find those also coming at the household level. So we have adopted a way of continuously assessing in a very systematic way, continuously assessing the indicators, assessing the signs that we have the gender-based violence, which is related to the drought pressure. And we have been able to detect this. We have been able to record. Unfortunately, we have seen some of them relating to very serious mental health situations. We have recorded some suicides. But most importantly, we have capacitated our ground teams, working very closely with the Ministry of Health, so that they are able to detect these, and we are able now to link them to the support mechanisms. And these have also included like early marriages. We have seen this, but we are working with also the administration, both at the national and the county. Once we have detected this, we have put in mechanisms of supporting the victims, and then ensuring that the population, especially at household level, that they are able to, they can be aware very quickly, and they can be able to seek the support mechanisms in good time.
And Venant, there's another also aspect that stands out amongst what you have talked about, and the number of children. And for example, this has affected hundreds of thousands of school-going children, pregnant women, lactating mothers. But let's center around how schools have been very important in this entire process, because normally it's these learning centers, schools across the country that are engines of social mobility, and they are the school feeding programs. Yet thousands are at home. More than 54,500 children in 17 of the 29 counties are at the risk of dropping out of school. Yet this is where meals are provided. This is a safe haven, more like for them, especially the girls that you have talked about in terms of gender-based violence, GBV. How do you retain this school feeding program? And do you cooperate with the Ministry of Education on the same?
Yes, the effects of drought are wide. Yes, around education, we have also noted very significant effects. And as I said, unfortunately, we are forced now to do emergency interventions at this stage. So beside the larger population, we have also launched in different counties focus on schools. And again, as we are heading towards exams, we are also focusing on the candidates so that they are not going to miss exams because of food. But again, you are very right, schools are some of the key points of social mobilization. But also, we are trying to work with partners, we are trying to have a conversation with the government and the other key partners that the school feeding program can do a lot around shaping, again, some of the cultures which we are talking about, which relate to improving livelihoods in the long term. And once we are able to maintain these children in school, through school feeding programs, of course, then we achieve the education and the larger social change. But also, we are able to prevent some things like conflict and other related effects. But again, beside the emergency bit, focusing on what we can do now about feeding the school-going children, but also we are looking at how we are having a conversation how we can be able to sustain or support sustaining these school feeding programs.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Venant. And this has more than 986,000 pregnant and lactating mothers are acutely malnourished because of the drought situation in the country. Governor Joseph Olelenku, the Kajiado County governor, is also one of the governors and his county amongst the counties listed in the 29 of the affected counties by the government agencies. He says his county is also rolling out measures despite the stretch in terms of resources and capacity or personnel. The situation is worsening in county number 34. I spoke with him yesterday on the situation in Kajiado County and the severity that continues to deepen in the county of Kajiado.
As you are aware, 10 counties, I think 12 counties are on red alert with regard to the ongoing drought, meaning the situation is dire and getting to an emergency situation. And specifically in Kajiado, we have been in this situation for the last about 4 months, and it looks like a problem that is not going to end soon, considering that it's being predicted that the short rains are not going to be sufficient. As at 2 weeks ago, we were saying that over 110,000 families are in dire need of assistance in terms of food relief, and over 400,000 livestock require feed pellets. We have the human hunger to deal with, and knowing that tourism is one of our core revenue earners in terms of tourism, knowing that Amboseli National Park is in the heart of Kajiado, Savo National Park in a long stretch borders Kajiado. Wildlife are also perishing in big numbers. In fact, I think now in Amboseli, the first thing KWS does in the morning is to remove carcasses from the roads. And so we are about to lose people. We are losing our livestock in big numbers. We are losing our wildlife in big numbers. And so this call for concerted efforts from all angles, from the national government, the county government, humanitarian agencies, and we have had some good engagement with the humanitarian agencies. We had FAO, a United Nations agency for agriculture. We also hosted the Deputy Secretary General for the United Nations, Madam Amina Jen Mohammed, about a month ago. And so we have received some very high-level partners coming to see the situation. It is our hope as a government to find solution to climate change, which is the cause of this problem that we are in, so that in the future, our people are able to deal with climate change, because in the foreseeable future, it looks like the situation is only going to get worse with regards to rains. And so now we are saying we actually don't need rains, we need water. Because when we have water, we will have fodder for our animals, we will have food for the people, and the whole chain is complete again, because the chain is now broken. Many of our rural women are dependent on selling milk. Many of the pastoralist people depend on beef and selling cows and all that. So when the fodder system collapsed because of this pastoralism being dependent on rains, the whole thing collapsed. There is no milk, there is no meat. Nutrition has gone to its worst position. So we are also building resilience in terms of setting up dams for these communities. Dams that are not only dependent on the rains to get water. Each dam will be equipped with a borehole, will have a dam liner, so that throughout the year the borehole, which is solar powered, in some instances electricity powered where it is close, or even diesel engines, throughout the year these dams will have water. Then we complete the chain again, because with water we'll have the fodder, we'll have the food, we will have the livestock. So we want to change this livestock ranching to a modern business. In our budget as a county, we are now rearranging our budget, and 100 million shillings will go into that offtake program. Of course, that offtake program for 100 million will only take 5,000 cows. That is a very small number, very, very small number. But of course, it is better than nothing now. And therefore, I want to urge the national government, who has come very strongly to partner with us, to allocate more money to KMC for a larger offtake. As I said earlier, about a month ago, the animals in dire need of pellets, or which were about to perish, was 400,000. I am sure that figure is higher now, and I'm sure a number have died. And so we need now to be talking of the offtake program in Kajiado alone, going into a few hundred of thousands. When you talk of it in the country, it might get into millions, you know. Kajiado alone has a livestock population, or cows alone, of close to 1 million. When you bring in the sheep and goat, it goes way too high. We have also now seen a bit of introduction of camels coming in. You know, a month ago, the president called the Council of Governors to State House, especially from the most affected counties. And we agreed on a coordination mechanism where, rather than everybody running on his small way, many NGOs are also doing their small things there. We now set up a framework where, at the national level, the deputy president will coordinate with the governors the efforts for the country. But at the county level, the governor and the county commissioner will chair what is loosely called the county steering group, or county coordinating committee, together with key officers from the most affected department, the efforts for the entire county. And the same was cascaded down to sub-counties, where the deputy county commissioner and sub-county administrators from the county government will lead the effort. It will go down like that up to the chief and assistant chief and Mzee Kijiji. So we now have a framework that flows smoothly. It is no longer a situation where, say, the county government is doing this, the national government is doing something else, an NGO like Red Cross or FAO is doing another thing. We are now all under one roof, and we have established the most needy communities or families or individuals right from the village level. And so we now know who need this help. We are now properly coordinated. And so mine is to ask the national government to fast track the release of food from Nairobi to the county, to ask the partners to increase their contribution into this kitty, and to commit that as a Kajiado government, county government, we have already rearranged our budget to remove money from other votes and bring them to this drought situation. And so now we have a seamless flow. But what now needs to come is the actual product, the feed pellets for the livestock, the food for the people, and possibly, because we also have a list of people who can benefit from cash transfer, consider that option as an addition to the ongoing effort. We are no longer now talking about the national government. We are now talking about the county coordinating committee, which the national government is represented by the county commissioner, who is the co-chair with the governor. We have actually received this support, yes, from the national government, yes, from a number of partners, as I spoke earlier, FAO, the Red Cross. We had the other day KCB Foundation bring us some relief food. We had Lab Trust, you know, a pension manager bringing their support. We even had some businessmen, individuals in Kitengela and Ngong bringing their support. The Catholic Commission is also. So we now are not just saying whether the government has done. The government has released quite a bit. But the sad thing is, despite all that I'm talking about, and even despite we, the county government, having also made the initial contribution of 130 million towards buying food, which went to about 20,000 families for a short period, it is only about 20% of the deserving cases who have received the relief food. For the livestock, it is insignificant. Yes, we got about 12,000 bags of pellets from FAO, but that is a drop in the sea. And so the thing now is for all of us to enhance our efforts. The national government to increase that input, the partners to also increase theirs. We as a county are doing our bit so that we can see if we could actually reach everybody. That will be the best situation. For our communities, this climate change is real. And therefore, they cannot continue to live the way they used to live. Take, for instance, with the Maasais, we used to move from place to place in search of pasture. It is no longer tenable. The land size is shrinking because of increase in population. The rain patterns are no longer predictable. So it is now them to do their pastoralism in a new setting. Feedlotting, you know, feeding people, animals from home will be the way. That the issue of free-range grazing is not going to be tenable in the future. Just the way the farmers who are doing agriculture, depending on rainfall, have changed to drip and hydroponics, we, the pastoralists, now must do our pastoralism in a new way, in a commercial way, and in a way that is compatible to the prevailing environment. That is one. They also need to know that continued fragmentation of land into very small pieces will only help to undermine the food security in the country. And therefore, land planning at the county's level, spatial planning, become very critical so that we continue to have land for food production, you know, land for settlements and housing, you know, land for wildlife. But at the global stage, I would like to say to the global community, the countries that are suffering this or feeling the bigger problem of climate change and are suffering the consequences for the same are actually not the ones that has contributed to the problem. it is important that developed countries that are actually the main contributors to this through their carbon emissions must also put into the United Nations kitty resources to mitigate the same. And so the message to the Kenyan delegation is that the international community must support Kenya because the pain we are going through and the suffering is not just occasioned by our own activities, but contributed by the global community and more so developed countries.
And that is Governor Joseph Ole Lenku, Kajiado County Governor, speaking about the extent of the drought situation in Kajiado County, calling for more concerted efforts between the national government and the counties, and saying that more relief measures need to be rolled out to reach out the affected and the vulnerable. And he talked about the situation in his county. As well, the clarion call he had for the Kenyan delegation that is set to leave the country in the next coming weeks for the COP27 climate conference in Sharm el-Sheikh in Egypt, where President William Ruto and the whole host of other world leaders will be attending the much needed and the very important congregation that will be discussing climate change amid the warming world and the rising global temperatures. Venant, I come to you. In which cluster is Kajiado County, and what's your takeaway from that interview from the Kajiado County governor?
I guess Kajiado is on alert as at now in terms of the IPC, Integrated Forest Classification. And it's true, the effects are there. And what I want to say is that in the past months, we have been observing some of the counties which have been drifting from one stage to the other. And we have been advocating around measures to be able to stop these counties from drifting to the deteriorated stage. And these are some of the measures, what the governor is talking about, especially around livelihoods, supporting livelihoods like the livestock farmers. So it is true. Kajiado is there. It is one of the most affected, but we want to call all out there, all well-wishers, that we need to come in, and most importantly, we need to coordinate. We need to coordinate this support. Again, in this kind of disaster, it's very risky to overdo. You are likely to overdo one side. You are likely to underdo some of the areas. So the risks are that if coordination is not done well. Of course, there has been the guidance by the national government that the coordination is done at the county, where the governors and the county commissioners more or less co-chair the county steering groups. And this is one of them. But most importantly is to have the necessary experts, because relief is not just relief. It has to be coordinated as a humanitarian approach, where it is now, where we want to look at the effects, where we want to look at what we did yesterday, and we want to look at what we need to do today for both emergency and also trying to support resilience.
Okay. On two occasions, and I want us to finish up with this before we sample some of the feedback and take the views of our viewers. The head of state, just days into his administration, 3 days after naming cabinet, had addressed the bicameral sitting of parliament, and he talked about the needed global I beg your pardon, 1.5 degrees Celsius. That has been the target for the United Nations and the countries that met in the Scottish city of Glasgow during the COP26 climate conference in Scotland last year in November. Now, in essence, President Ruto again last week when he met the Spanish Prime Minister emphasized on the same, and he said that we are heading to Sharm el-Sheikh in Egypt, happening in Africa this time around COP27, with more concerted effort as a continent for the richer countries to pay. According to President Lazarus Chakwera, the Malawian president, in Scotland last year, he said, if richer countries don't pay up, look, you guys pay up, he said, or we perish all together. Africa doesn't emit gas emissions as are other developed nations like the United States of America, some European countries, India, China, or in Brazil. then how do you think Africa can engineer a message and deliver that message on the African continent as the African continent also looks forward to stave further consequences of climate change?
Yes, I guess the message cannot be packed any better because Africa as a continent, the number of counties, we can see their status and their experience is very much similar. And the only best way which can happen is to have a concerted approach and a common message around how they need to relate to the whole climate change issue and how they need to relate to the whole developed countries' participation in the emission of gases. So I guess the evidence is there in Africa, which is very much common in most of the countries in terms of the effects, in terms of the suffering, which is currently as at now. And the ongoing drought in the Horn of Africa is a very, very live example, which is very, very current and happening as at now. This is one of the evidence which the countries may package their message and their push around the developed countries supporting. Yes.
Thank you. Let's now take a look at some of the feedback on the Twitter handle at Citizen TV Kenya, the hashtag Daybreak on the Twitter handle. And here's what's coming up. These are just some samples of your feedback coming in since the broadcast had started at 6 a.m. And Remy Butia says proactive measures aimed at sustainable protection of the main productive assets such as pastures and livestock resources are essential. Meaningful, immediate progress is the growth of national and county level structures to end drought situation in the country. Next up is it's Rev Harrison. He says the government should look for a permanent solution to the drought situation and menace in the country. In Kenya, he says, once and for all. Thus, irrigation, planting food resistant to drought is good. Up next is Goody Barasawere. He says it's time the government declared drought as a national disaster, and it's equally important that all dockets work collectively toward mitigating the impacts of the drought situation that has badly hit the ASAL regions. This one is from Bobo Tieno Wino. He says it's a pity food going to West in Nyandarua County, yet other parts of the country's citizens are dying of hunger. Kudos to the residents for calling out on the government and being our brother's keeper in the drought-affected areas. This one is from Okelo Mwalimu. He says, in order to mitigate drought-related dangers, the government should initiate non-discriminatory livestock uptake program, coming up with climate change mitigation fund and educate citizens on the need for water harvesting. I'm saddened, he said, to have heard that my people of Nyore village are hard hit by the drought situation in the country. And those are some of your sample feedback on the Twitter handle coming through the hashtag Daybreak at Citizen TV Kenya and at Ayub Abdikadir. And we thank you for your contributions as well here on the broadcast. Venant, your final comments on this and reports from some parts of the country of rains that have been reported. And you have talked about, and agencies have predicted a failure of the October, November, December rainfall, underperformance for that matter. But God's power and miracle is behind our comprehension, you agree with me. In the event it rains then, and livestock again are flooded, homes are flooded, people are displaced, we have IDPs, internally displaced persons. It's again a case of double tragedy, the sword that cuts on both ends of the divide. How do we mitigate such an aspect?
Yeah, yes, unfortunately very likely where we have rains coming after a long spell of drought, the risk of flash floods are very much there. And what I want to say is that this is not a new phenomena. It's very much common after dry spells and in very specific areas. So we'll continue releasing information, the early warning information, to the targeted, or rather to the most risk areas. And we want to say again, Kenya Red Cross, we have a 1199 number in case anybody wants to seek any information around that risk and the ongoing rains. Now, the prediction is that the rains are going to underperform, and but in some of the areas where we have short but heavy rains, the risks of flash floods are there. I want to advise the communities to, first of all, to be aware this is the season which mostly causes that. The short rains are usually short and heavy, and they know their areas. They may want to at least try to stay in the lower risk areas, like the higher areas. But most importantly, they need to look at this in terms of up to village and family level, not to look at sub-county ward and sub-county. Let's them look at the risk in terms of working at family and village level. And then they can always work with the Red Cross volunteers who are very much placed in most of the villages in the country. But as an early warning, yes, the risk is there. These rains are likely going to lead to further losses if we are not ready and we are not able to prevent this, because likelihood of the livestock which have missed water for a long time drink a lot of water, and then we lose more.
Venant Ndigila, the manager of the disaster response part of the Kenya Red Cross, thank you for your time and talking about this very timely topic and subject across the country. More than 29 counties affected, and your company is appreciated. Many thanks for making time on the broadcast.
Thank you.
And thank you to you too for watching Daybreak on Citizen TV Kenya. Up next is Sporty Monday. Willis Raburu and Steve Shitera will be here. They will be talking more about events across the United Kingdom. The English Premier League, City ran riot at the Foxes, that was Leicester City, the 2016 champions, and courtesy of Kevin De Bruyne's 1-0 win and the goal scored by the Belgian, courtesy of that free kick. And Manchester United won against West Ham at Old Trafford. The rest still finding the perfect footing ever since Alex Ferguson-Fergie left in 2013, the last time they won the English Premier League. Arsenal back to the table after gunning the Forest at North London, and also Tottenham, who won on Saturday. Chelsea were beaten at the Community Stadium. All that in a wrap you will be given here on Sporty Monday by Steve Shitera, Arocho and Willis Rabura. I find, however, though, there seems to be only one Arsenal fan, 2 Manchester and a Chelsea fan. They'll be here to give you more on what has transpired across the football leagues in the European continent. Many thanks for waking up with us here on Daybreak. I am Ayub Abdikadir Abdi. Thanks for watching. Good morning.